Hey guys, come on downstairs. Today we're going to finish this ridiculously long job number 13 here on our Career Mode Las Vegas. It's part 3 of the Fat Lady Sings. Job number 13 in the Las Vegas area. We are taking a lady from Las Vegas down to Mexicali, Mexico to have gastric bypass surgery. It's been somewhat of an adventure so far. We ran out of gas in part 1. Had to make an emergency dead stick landing in the California desert. But since then, things have gone smoothly. Once we got back in the air, got back to an airport, we just put ourselves at the nearest airport like we got towed. We didn't crash into anything, so it just counted as an off runway landing, so that'll cost us $2,500 when we settle things up for this job. But a crash would have been a heck of a lot more costly. All right, we're in Desert Center, California. And we have one more leg between us and the Mexico border. All right, getting a little squirrely there. 55 knots, rotate. Whew. All right, we're on our way to Mexico. This job was over 300 nautical miles. We divided it up into 4 different legs. It really wouldn't have taken that many legs if it wasn't for the fact that our passenger weighs 330 pounds and I weigh 226, so we've got over 500 pounds in the cockpit. Yeah, I know you can't see her over there. She's invisible. So we've had a lot of weight on this flight. And because we have a lot of weight, because our payload is so heavy, we have had to take less fuel. But we made the flight from Parker to Desert Center a little bit overweight. We put in some extra fuel, and that just trying to be cautious and not run out of fuel again. That really was not good. That didn't go well. And I don't really know how. I mean, obviously you don't want to be so far overweight that the plane won't fly. But I think we're just a little bit overweight, and so that might just maybe change our landing speed, our stall speed, our takeoff speed, that kind of stuff a little bit. But we should still be able to fly. We didn't go that far over. And I don't know how strict these the takeoff weights are on these planes. I mean, I'm guessing they're fairly strict. I'm guessing you really don't want to mess with them in real life. And for the most part, in this series, we won't mess with our takeoff weights. In fact, this is literally the only job I can think of where we actually voluntarily went above our takeoff weight to put a little bit more fuel on board. So the plane feels really heavy to fly. If you missed part 1 and part 2, we are taking this lady to Mexico. A lot of people are opting to do that these days. It's super expensive to have that surgery done in the U.S. I think there's a number of insurances that maybe won't pay for it for whatever reason on whatever plans. Maybe people that maybe don't have any current health issues maybe, and they're just trying. I mean, it would make sense from an insurance perspective that it might be preventative health, which in a lot of plans would probably be covered, but who knows. Insurance companies are going to try not to pay what they, if they possibly can, they're going to try not to pay. So we're on the home stretch here. We are in Southern California, and we're going to be crossing the border into Mexico in South Central California. On the U.S. side of the border, there's a little town called Calexico. And on the Mexico side of the border, there's a pretty good-sized town called Mexicali. So it's Calexico in the U.S. and Mexicali in Mexico. Man, look at those mountains. Look at the detail. And it's not just random. The thing is it's not just random detail either. It's accurate detail. I mean, all of those elevations are accurate. Like down to feet. Like super accurate. In fact, I went to the house I grew up in Utah. Our backyard, at the edge of our backyard, there was a drop-off that went down into our neighbor's backyard that was probably about 5 or 6 feet. And I went and checked that house out on Flight Simulator. And yeah, the house was just a generic looking house, except that the roof was shaped the same as the house I grew up in. And the backyard was there, but not only was the backyard there, they had that about 5 foot drop off down into our neighbor's yard. So that tells you how accurate all of these elevations are. I mean, that little 5 foot drop off from the backyard of the house I grew up in into our neighbor's house was represented on this flight simulator. It was accurate. That elevation change was accurate. And it was kind of like a straight drop off, which it is in real life. We actually put in a retaining wall there. So it's about a 5 foot retaining wall. And that drop off was represented. So that just, when I saw that, I was just like, my goodness, like all of these elevations are accurate. Like every shadow cast on these hillsides, like that's what they actually look like. Like that is the actual shape of all of these mountains, all of the shadows. Kind of mind-blowing, to be honest. Some nice color there, some green on one side of the hill. Looks like a nice little wash, flash flood area maybe. Some runoff in monsoon season. I'm telling you, this flight has felt like we're crossing the Sahara Desert, man. Like, I mean, it's pretty, don't get me wrong. Like, I love looking at the terrain of the desert from the sky. But it has felt like a super long flight. Granted, we have been only taking just under a half a tank of fuel. So we haven't been able to go very far without landing. That has really slowed us down and really made this job seem a lot more difficult than it really should have been. If we weren't carrying so much weight on board, we probably would have had to stop once for fuel is all. And probably somewhere down where we're at right now, fairly close to the border. I'm starting to lose my voice, guys. I'm sorry. But I've got to try to get this done, this commentary done today, so I can finish out this job 13 in the next couple of days and not leave a big gap between part 1, part 2, and part 3. Okay, so guys, we are into the big valley now. We are crossing into the valley where we're going to cross the border at. We're still a little ways north. It's a really big valley. There's lots of farmland and a lake at the north end. So in that last scene you saw the lake. Now you're starting to see some of the farmland out ahead of us. We're crossing these mountains. And on the other end of this farmland is the border. So a lot of the farmland is in the US, and then when we hit the border, like there's a very distinct line. You'll be able to tell where the border is as we cross into it. There's a nice dirt airport down there. It's interesting. So off in the distance is Mexico, guys. We have almost made it. We are almost to Mexico. And we're going to, just in the interest of...
Los Angeles approach Cessna Bravo Golf Tree is type Cessna 15211 miles northeast of Kilo Charlie Lima Romeo 5,200 feet. Request flight following.
All right, we'll try to get some flight following
Cessna
going
Bravo
here.
Golf Tree, Los Angeles approach. Squawk 6612.
I don't know what
Squawk
made me do this,
6612 Cessna Bravo Golf Tree.
Cessna Bravo Golf Tree radar contact 10 miles northeast of Kilo Charlie Lima Romeo 5,200 feet. Altimeter 30.12.
Roger, Cessna Bravo Golf Tree.
Okay, so we're about 5,200 feet here. I've had flight following off and on. I think I don't know why exactly I went into it, but we're going to check and see if we are within range to check the weather in Mexico. So there's a Calexico International Airport on the US side. It's not a very big airport. And there's a Mexicali Airport on the Mexico side, and we're going to check the ATIS there.
Uniform 1700 Zulu. Wind calm. Visibility 10. Sky condition clear. Temperature 15. Dew point 10. Altimeter 30.13. Visual runway 28 in use. Landing and departing runway 28. DFR aircraft say direction of flight. All aircraft read back, hold short and...
Okay, so it looks like the wind is calm in Mexico. That is the ATIS from the Mexicali International Airport. And we're not going to be landing at that airport, but that's where we're going to get our weather information from, because the place that we are landing is a gravel airstrip with just a couple of buildings around it, and they do not have an ATIS for us to tune into. So Mexicali International Airport is going to give us our weather information. So off in the distance, it's a little bit hazy, but that's Mexico up there, my friends. We have almost made it. We have almost made it to Mexico. So right now we are navigating around a VOR and we're using our VOR2, so it's just off of, if you look at the yoke, the right handle, the VOR2, the right handle of the yoke is partially covering the VOR2 instrument, or the NAV2 instrument. That's the one we're following. So our radial to the VOR we're tracking is just a little bit to our left. So we're basically just kind of flying right alongside the line that we want to be on, but we're heading in the right direction. The top nav is way off, and that we're not paying attention to that one right now anyway, because the one we're following is the NAV2. So it is the 115.90. There's the lake. It's a nice farmland. Looks like a pretty little valley. Well irrigated, obviously. There's a couple little towns throughout this farmland. And then the little town at the end of it on the border is going to be Calexico. So once we get to the VOR that we're tracking in the NAV2, the arrow that's pointing up will flip around and point down, meaning we've reached that VOR and we're now traveling away from it. When we reach it, we're still going to use that VOR to try to locate the airport in Mexico that we're going to. And we're going to turn at that VOR, and we're going to change our course at that VOR and try to track a line away from that VOR that should take us right to the airport. I talked about it a little bit in the last episode in part 2. That is a much harder way of locating an airport, to take the VOR, or to track away from a VOR to the airport. It's much easier if the VOR is at the airport and you're going towards it, because you can constantly adjust your line going towards the VOR. Whereas going away from the VOR, if we're going to reach the airport, we have to stay on one line and not get off of it. If we do get off of it, we've got to get back to it. The other thing that makes it more difficult to track the radial away from a VOR is that there's no indication of whether or not you have flown over the top of the airport, because that radial away from the VOR on that heading, that's just going to go on and on and on until you're out of range of the VOR, right? And there's nothing that's going to say you've hit your airport. Whereas if the VOR is at the airport, when you reach that VOR, that triangle, that arrow is going to flip, and you're going to know that you reached that VOR, so the airport should be down below you somewhere. And if you haven't seen it by now, you know you need to look, because it's down below you. If you miss the airport tracking the radial away from a VOR, you might be screwed. Like, you might just keep flying on that line until you're out of range of the VOR, and then you lose their signal. So, but then you could turn around and track the opposite radial back towards the VOR and look for the airport again. But it would be costly. It would cost you a lot of time, a lot of fuel. Depending on where your fuel was, you could be risking running out of gas like we did in part 1. Not that was the reason we ran out of gas, it wasn't, but it's putting you in a situation where it would be risking it again. Okay, so we're starting to get a little bit further south towards Mexico. I want to say that small hill, the small hill that you see off just above our Cessna logo on the dash there, on the on the flight deck thing there. I want to say that hill is actually in Mexico. So we're getting there, guys. We are very, very close. And I haven't cut out much of this flight. We're pretty much doing this entire flight across this valley. So we're doing it in real time. I'm not cutting anything out, so you can get an idea of just how slow the Cessna 152 really is. It's not super fast. All of the videos I've done so far have been abbreviated. I've cut lots of chunks of the flight out. But this is the speed right here that we've done the entire flights at. So we're still a little bit to the right of the line that we want to be at to get to that VOR. It's not as much of a big deal going to the VOR as it will be going away from the VOR. If we're too far off that line going away from the VOR, that puts us at a little more risk of not being able to find our airport, especially on a day where visibility isn't great. So even being off of our line a little bit here, when we get to the VOR and start traveling away from the VOR, it's still going to flip. Oh well, now we're going to change our course. So apparently I didn't even have it on the right course. What did I just do? So I just went down to the CDI and changed the course of it. So now the line that we want. Oh, I know what I did. So we're getting fairly close to the VOR, so I changed the line to the course to the line that we want to reach our airport at. So we're going to go ahead and start going to the right now so that we'll actually hit the VOR and maybe be already heading towards the airport rather than turning once we get to the VOR. So we'll see how that goes. But we're starting to get really close to the border here. We're about ready to leave the United States and enter Mexico. So we're close enough, I guess, now that we can contact the airport we're looking for.
Mike Romeo Papa traffic Cessna Bravo Golf Tree 22 miles north, 5,200 feet, inbound to land runway 8.
Okay, so we are 22 miles north of our landing strip, of our gravel airstrip. We have not crossed into Mexico yet. When we cross into Mexico, we're about, I think, 5 or 6, 7 miles away from that airport. It's basically just on the south end of Mexicali. And the international airport for Mexicali is going to be on the east side of the city, so off of our left wing quite a ways. So we're still trying to head a little bit to the west and try to maybe pick up that radial that'll take us through the VOR towards the airport, which it looks like we're starting to reach because the line's starting to come over to the center a little bit. So we're heading almost due south, maybe just a little bit to the west. And we're going to try to get on the radial heading a little bit southeast in order to reach that airport. I'm going to start to turn now. As we get a little bit closer here, you're really going to be able to see the border come into view, where all that farmland in the U.S. turns into city in Mexico. You can actually kind of see it right there. It's just not an overly visible day, so a little bit hazy out there. And we're at about still right around 5,200 feet. We're keeping our altitude pretty good. It looks like there's a little lake on the Mexico side of the border as well down there, so desert landscape, but there is some water, which makes this a good place. Makes this a good place to live. Or I'm sure it was a pretty solid place to settle back in the day when it was settled. Okay, so straight ahead, the little town right off our nose is Calexico, California. And I believe the VOR we're tracking is actually at the Calexico International Airport in California. They call it they say International Airport, but it's there's not big jets landing there or anything like that. It's pretty much a regional municipal airport. So probably call it international because planes from in Mexico can come land there, I guess. I don't know. Man, what a job this one has been. This job has been massive. Should be a pretty good payday for us. Stock up some money towards buying our next plane. I've made a little bit of an amendment to the our pay scale. Right now, and I know it's not realistic. I don't want anybody to come at me with that's an unrealistic. Like, realistic would be I could work the rest of my life and not have enough money to buy a $2 million plane, you know what I mean? So yeah, the pay is not realistic. It's way more than it would be. But for the sake of this exercise, for the sake of making this whole thing work, it is what it is. It's not realistic, but it is what it is. The thing is I want to be consistent. Like, lay out the rules and be consistent. So, for all of these flights in the Cessna 152, our pay grade has been $50 per planned nautical mile. I started thinking, that's great and everything, but I don't want to have that. Like, I don't want to be flying like a Cessna 208 Grand Caravan with like 10 people in there.
Mike Romeo Papa traffic Cessna
and still
Bravo
be making the
Golf
same.
3 miles north, 3,900 feet inbound to land runway 8.
So we're around 13 miles away. You can see the border straight ahead of us. I don't want to be just making the same as I was in the Cessna per mile if we've got like 10 passengers in the Grand Caravan or whatever, you know? And we lose our connection here. Just dandy. It comes back. So I did kind of amend the payments because the Cessna is a one passenger plane. It's the 50 miles per plan, or $50 per planned nautical mile is what I'm going off of. Say we get a plane that has like 4 seats, so 3 passengers, we might go down to like $25 per nautical mile per passenger, and so we would be making $75 per nautical mile. So when we start to get planes that can carry more people, we're going to start making a little bit more money that way. So we're going to have our pay scale work like that, not just a flat $50 per nautical mile per planned nautical mile. So that will just make it more cost effective or more valuable to have, you know, A, faster planes, B, planes that can hold more people, more passengers, more money. So that seems pretty straightforward, and that's how we're going to do things. All right, there's the border, pretty dang clear. You've got farms on the US side, you've got city on the Mexico side. And we are exiting the United States. Right now. Out of the United States we go. Look down that line. Okay. Well, we're in Mexico now. Welcome to Mexicali. Mexicali, Baja California, Mexico. Now let's see if we can locate that gravel airstrip. So the international airport in Mexicali is off to our left, probably about 10 miles out that way. We're not going to land this little Cessna at the international airport. So we found a little gravel airstrip where our passenger has made arrangements for transportation to pick her up and get her to the hospital, so she can be prepped for her life-changing surgery. I still think it's pretty risky to go to Mexico to do this. My wife's cousin actually did this, went to Mexico. I can't remember where in Mexico. I don't think it was Mexicali. But she actually did go to Mexico and have this surgery done there. And it's been life-changing for her, but it still worries me, man. Like I said in part one of this surgery is not, I mean, it's a risky surgery in the US even. So going to Mexico would just worry me. There's a nice shot of Mexicali. Few cars down on the roads. That's about as bustling as the roads get in Flight Simulator. All right. Okay, we're looking for our runway here. We're looking for that airstrip. We're starting to reach the south end of the city, and it's got to be out this way somewhere. It has been a long journey. Oh my gosh. Feels like we left North Las Vegas forever ago. But it's late afternoon on December 27th. We left it on December 26th. Our goal was to make it all in one day, but we ran out of gas and ended up having to sit out a day, waited out at an airport in Needles, California, before our plane was ready to go again the next morning. So it's been a 2-day journey for us. Started on December 26th, that's going to end here on the December 27th. Any signs of our gravel airstrip? That looks like a runway out in front of us, but that is not the right heading. Although that looks kind of like a runway. I don't want to lose too much altitude because it makes it really hard to see. We keep our altitude up here so we can actually see. what's a runway and what's not. Get too low and it starts to make it really difficult to see anything that isn't just right underneath you. And right now we're down to about 1,300 feet. So we're almost down to about traffic pattern flight level, almost 1,000 feet above ground level. In fact, we might be at it right now at 1,200 feet. You can see ground level being 200 feet. Okay. All right, there's our airstrip. It is out. We're going to be...
Mike Romeo Papa traffic Cessna Bravo Gulfstream is on final runway 8 to land.
We're going to be making a left turn here onto final. Flaps full. And there's our runway. It's the light gray gravel. You'll see it as we swing around here. We did locate it. We found our airport. There she is, right there. Make sure we don't hit any of these telephone line poles or whatever they are. Communication towers. Alright, we're coming in a little bit low. We're at 50 knots right now. We're going to need to give it some throttle here. Got to clear these trees. And we are almost at stall speed. Come on, give it some throttle. We are really flirting with stall speed here, especially with the weight we have. Oh, but we made it. Really lucky the stall buzzer didn't even sound, because we were right on that stall line, just above 40 knots at full flaps. Wow. Okay, we're on the gravel runway. We made it. We're in Mexico, guys. Wheels down. In another country. We're in Mexico. We got this job done, unbelievably. It took 3 episodes to get this job done. It was an absolute beast of a job to do in this Cessna 152. 4 legs and an unexpected off-runway landing. So essentially 5 legs. 4 planned legs turned into 5 legs. But we're here. The sun is still high on December 27th. And we're in Mexicali, Mexico. Our trusty little Cessna has gotten us a lot of places. And up next, we're going to trek. We're going to, as opposite of a trek as we could get out of Las Vegas, we're going to head into south central Utah. And the airport I think that we land at next, the elevation is like 8,000 feet. It's up there. It's up in the tops of the mountains. Whereas this elevation is like 200 feet. Less than that. It's almost sea level, guys. It's like 60 feet. Alright. We're not really paying much attention to the worker. We're just going to park right here. We're good. Get this lady out of our plane. Shut it down. Holy crap, guys, we made it. We made it. Cut the engines. We are in Mexico. And we are done with this job. Alright. There's the last look at what the last leg did fuel-wise. Let's total it all up here in just a second, though. It's a nice shot of Mexico. So, Mexicali. Mexicali, Mexico. Okay guys, we made some money on this job. Let's take a look. Let's see how we did. Okay, we started job 13 with $122,274.88. I exaggerated a little bit. It wasn't 300 miles. It was 225 nautical miles. We made $11,250. Our fuel cost was 45.64 gallons, which cost us $547.68. We landed off the runway once. That cost us $2,500, which gives us an ending balance of $130,477.20. So that is the end of job number 13. Up next, we're going to head up into Utah and the Boulder Mountains. It's Mama's Basement, Microsoft Flight Simulator, Career Mode, Las Vegas.